Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into how the cutting-edge Vortex project is literally unlocking the world's oldest accounting system. We are traveling back over 4 millennia to Mesopotamia to examine what's called the shadow archive of history. It's this incredibly complex, rigorous world of ancient accountants.
Now just think about this number for a second, 120,000. Under the highly centralized administration of the third dynasty of we're talking around 2100 BCE, scribes produce an estimated 120,000 cuneiform administrative tablets. And, this wasn't just a few tally marks scribbled on some clay. This was a true ancient information age. Imagine a sprawling bureaucratic engine where absolutely everything, from agricultural yield right down to individual labor quotas, was relentlessly tracked.
But, well, that brings us to a really massive challenge, and this is actually milestone 1 of the Vortex project. How do you audit an empire that has literally been shattered into pieces? Today, we're going to see how modern forensic simulation bridges a 4,000-year gap to reassemble these broken records, decode the data, and ultimately reveal the actual human beings who wrote them.
Section 1. The Ancient Information Age.
Okay, let's dive into this. To keep a highly centralized empire running smoothly, they needed a reliable engine, right? And that engine was the balanced account ledger. This brilliantly illustrates the rigorous double-entry bookkeeping they invented. This ledger, known as the Nijtuka-9-Ak, was incredibly structured. First, scribes recorded the capital, or starting materials, which they called Sagnij-Tugur-11 Ra. Then, they balanced that against the Zidja M3, the actual outlays or completed work. Finally, they calculated the difference. If a supervisor's team fell short of the required quota, the deficit, known as La Ia 3, was carried forward as a personal liability into the next year. Just imagine the ancient IRS carrying over your missing labor quotas year after year.
Section 2. Math, Quotas, and Mistakes.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that this wasn't just abstract math. These accounts had real-world implications, holding foremen strictly accountable by tracking exact daily quotas. Let's look at the Abagina ledger. This is what we might call a perfect blind audit. The scribe calculated labor for 36 females over a 360-day administrative year, establishing what we call an axiomatic lock. That's a constant of 12,960 total workdays. It is mathematically flawless. This was the exact baseline the provincial governor expected to see.
But not all scribes were quite that perfect. Now, what's really fascinating is how we can forensically diagnose an unpracticed hand by looking at physical mistakes right there on the clay itself. If you contrast that perfect Abagina ledger with the Erlenmeyer 155 text, we see a glaring 0.08-day milling discrepancy where the scribe poorly rounded numbers completely messing up the free days allotment. We're literally seeing clumsy wedge impressions, spatial crowding, and erased mathematical errors. I mean, it's basically the 4,000-year-old equivalent of a panicking intern's eraser marks.
Section 3. A global jigsaw puzzle.
Of course, investigating these ancient accountants hits a major roadblock, the fragment problem. Because of historical looting, thousands of broken tablets are physically scattered across global museum collections, sometimes separated by thousands of kilometers. You might have half a ledger sitting in London and the other half in Geneva. And because real clay fragments suffer severe erosion along their break lines, traditional interlocking assembly algorithms, the kind you'd use for a clean, flat jigsaw puzzle, are completely ineffective here.
Section 4. The virtual reconstruction.
So how do we fix this? Let's see how this builds into the next major Vortex milestone. Researchers realize that if you can't physically bring the pieces together, well, you have to do it digitally. First, they generate high-precision 3D meshes of those scattered fragments. Second, an algorithm calculates the boundary curves and surface orientations. Third, they apply GPU-accelerated cost functions to test spatial rotation, which drastically speeds up all the complex math. And finally, they virtually align the fragments, optimizing the fit despite all that physical degradation. This automated algorithm actually successfully joined the Atrahasis C tablet perfectly, even though the physical pieces are 1,000 kilometers apart.
Section 5. Filtering the invisible. Once we have a highly precise 3D model pieced together, we transition from merely reading a text to forensically investigating an artifact far beyond what the naked eye can see. By manipulating virtual light, horizontal beams, and depth shading on these 3D models, we can reveal shallow wedge heads, tool patterns, and faint drawings that are entirely invisible under normal museum lighting. It's like turning on a flashlight in a dark room.
To take this even further, scientists apply what's called the MSII filter.
It's a mathematical 3D tool that dynamically calculates curvature, and this brings us right to the Vortex Project's Milestone 4 breakthrough. This filter acts as the ultimate forensic tool. It's capable of extracting faint, undertext, cylinder seal impressions, like the elite seal of Luhaya, showing these intricate scenes of hunting dogs and boars that were previously completely invisible beneath the written cuneiform signs.
Section 6. The Scribe's Fingerprints. And that brings us to the ultimate payoff of this digital investigation, finding the ghosts in the machine. The MSI filter successfully revealed an ancient scribe's actual fingerprint pressed into the clay, measuring a micrometric groove depth of exactly 0.09 millimeters. Using a structured light scanner like the Space Spider, which boasts an incredible 0.08 millimeter resolution, we can literally boost the microscopic friction ridges of an anonymous scribe's fingerprint. As researchers have noted, quote, the image of the scribe's fingerprint provides a wider perspective on the life of the tablet and establishes a connection with the humans who made these objects. Unquote. We aren't just reading agricultural data anymore. We are actually mapping out bureaucratic networks by identifying the individual humans who touched these tablets 4 millennia ago. Theoretically, we can even match the fingerprint of that unpracticed apprentice, the one who made the 0.08-day milling error, across multiple ledgers and track their entire career.
So I want to leave you with this thought. If a 4,000-year-old fingerprint can be uncovered today using digital filters, what other human stories are hiding in the shadow archive of history, just waiting to be scanned? As we continue to bridge the ancient information age with modern forensic simulation, it really leaves you wondering, whose hands will we discover next? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.